Hey everybody, welcome back to my jewelry bench, and today we're going to work on this pocket watch that had a little bit of damage caused by Hurricane Ian. For those of you who don't know, I'm down in Fort Myers, Florida. Southwest Florida got pretty devastated from Hurricane Ian back in September. Well, mainland's about 30% back to normal. I'd say it's going to be years before Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach are ever back to normal. But one of the results of Hurricane Ian was damage to a lot of personal items, including jewelry and watches. And here's a case where a pocket watch was slightly damaged underwater by some seawater, it looks like, judging by the corrosion on this particular watch. You can see that it's got some rust. Rust protruded back into the case. We're going to clean that up. The watch itself is probably 90% good. We're going to do the best we can to restore this. First thing we're going to do is remove the hands and, of course, decase the watch. We're going to get the stem and crown out. Now, I did discover quite a bit of rust that was stuck down in the case tube. Did manage to clean it all out and got the stem pretty well straightened back out to what it should be. It was a little tough getting out. That seawater can do a lot of damage, seize up parts on a watch if you don't get to them relatively quick, or if you aren't lucky enough to have very little damage like this watch. You can see I had to use a nylon pliers to just turn that stem back and forth, and got lucky enough. Of course, it wasn't completely damaged, just some surface rust on it. We're going to attack this rust with the fiberglass brush. I keep a lot of these on hand just in case I have to run into like rust or corrosion removal. Fiberglass brushes are really good to remove spot rust like this because it won't damage the metal. It really does do a good job of getting most of the rust off. You can see there's some corrosion there, and we can go back and scrape that off a little bit with either a small scraper, or in this case I'm going to use a couple different options to do it. So I'm just going to oil up this one screw. This is the case screw. This screw looks pretty well shot, but we're going to try to save it. Put in a little clock or watch oil on a screw that's got some rust on it in a watch will typically loosen it up a little bit if you attack it with the fiberglass brush in advance. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scrape out the notch on the screw. Kind of hopefully loosen it up and let it sit for a little while, and then come back and try to undo it. And as you can see, the more I get into this, the more that screw is just falling apart. One of the things that I find with older watches is that the watch, plates and bridges are usually made of really high quality metal. The screws tend to be the worst part or the weakest link in the bunch, and you can see the screw is just falling apart here. It's pretty much rotted. I'm just going to try to get it out of the frame here so that I can take the movement out. It broke right down at the base of the plate. I don't know if I'll be able to get that out because it's so corroded in the movement, but we're going to go ahead and remove the rust anyway and see if we can remove it later. I'll get the other case screw out, put that aside. Remember, when you take a watch apart, you should always use a parts tray or some kind of an organizational pad so that you know where all the parts go. Here you can see that the rust got on the bottom of the dial. This client was pretty lucky in that the dial was not damaged, or the surface of the dial was not damaged at all. It was just the underside where a little bit of rust got onto it. It looks like it bled off of some of those screws and the stem. Once we get the dial off, we can take a look at the movement. I'm a little out of focus. I'm using a new camera, guys. It does take very good video when I get it in focus. So I'm still learning. I'm changing some different lenses to get some close-up shots. So bear with me. The next video or two might be a little bit obnoxious with these close-ups, but I'm getting there. So here you can see the surface of that dial was fortunately not damaged, because if I had to, it would have been a nightmare to try to restore this. So now I'm going to take the balance off. Again, I'm going to take the complete balance assembly off. I'm not going to break this down. I'm going to clean it separately when I go ahead and clean all the parts. I was really happy to see that there was no rust or water damage that seeped into the balance, because the hairspring on these Swiss watches can be quite devastating. They are steel, and they're not really high quality hairsprings. They do hold up well, but we do often run into a problem. If you get a little water on those hairsprings, they're just going to rot away. We got lucky there. Again, we pulled that off. We're going to clean that up separately. Now it's time to tackle the pallet bridge and the pallet fork. One of the things I did notice about this watch is that it seems to be wound tight, but it's not. It's not wound at all. It's just kind of seized up a little bit. I'm not sure you know, what the scoop is there. Again, I'm going to pull the mainspring out. I'm going to clean the mainspring, recondition it, grease it, and put it back in. So you can see I'm pulling the pallet fork bridge out, and we're going to put that aside in our parts tray. We'll grab that pallet fork, gently put it along with the balance wheel. I'm going to give this a little push and just to see if anything is on the spring. It'll just unwind, and you can see I'm getting some good movement here. There's not much wind on that spring at all. It just kind of seized up a little bit, probably due to age. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and remove the ratchet wheels. The ratchet wheel for the mainspring, that is a normally thread screw, so you're just going to take that off, put it aside. Be very careful with those screws. They're thin, they're delicate. You can break them if you twist them the wrong way. On this particular watch, note that it does have a click spring there that's exposed, and that will pop out if you're not careful, so just keep that pushed in. I'm going to take the winding ratchet out, and we'll put that aside. And I'm going to grab that fiberglass brush, and I'm going to start tackling all the rust along the rim and frame of the watch before I start the disassembly process of this frame. You can see there's quite a bit along the sides, and that's just seepage. Thank God it didn't get into the movement. It just kind of seeped around the watch, which is pretty good. Stayed within the case. Got my cannon pinion puller here. We're just going to pull off that cannon pinion. Put that aside in a parts tray. And now let's tackle these screws on the bridges themselves. So the train bridge here has 2 screws that hold it in place. Loosen up those screws, put them aside, and take that bridge off. That'll expose 3 of the train gears. We're just going to take those out very gently and put them aside in our parts tray. Get them ready for cleaning. Now we're on the barrel bridge, and you can see this screw. This screw is probably hammered. I ended up getting it out, but it did take quite a bit of effort. I soaked it in oil, let the oil seep in there for a while, let it sit for about an hour, and then I came back, brushed it again. We tried it again. I actually used a heavier duty screwdriver to get the screw loosened, and it did loosen up pretty good. This is the effort that I needed to take to get the oil in that screw into the recessed area of the bridge. Once I got it oiled the second time, again I let it sit for another 20 minutes, came back and tried again with a slightly larger screwdriver, and it seemed to work okay. Now, this screw is not salvageable, so I'm just going to replace it. I've got hundreds and hundreds of watch screws, so I know I'll find something that'll fit this. We'll pull the other 2 screws off this barrel bridge and put them aside. Gently lift off the screws, put them in the parts tray, and then lift up on the bridge. You can see there's a little bit of rust on this, so we're going to clean that with the fiberglass brush. Clean it off, and then we'll clean all the parts in the parts cleaner. The gears are all in pretty good shape. I'm not seeing really any dried oil or debris. You know, the watch probably hasn't been exposed to years of lack of maintenance. Get those clutch gears out, and I'm just going to check the main bridge here and see if I find anything that's really significantly wrong other than that case screw. A little moisture did seep into this watch, and again, I'm using the fiber or the fiberglass brush to scrape off any corrosion or rust that I see. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. Just going to tackle all these parts one by one. The gears will probably just get a bath in the cleaning solution and the rinse because they're actually all pretty good and none of them were damaged by water or seawater, thank God. Now here you can see I'm using a very fine Brillo pad, like I forget what you call a bristle brush pad, and I couldn't get the rust off. I ended up actually using a brass wheel, and that brass wheel actually worked pretty good to get most of that rust off. I did scrape it a little bit with a small plastic scraper to get some corrosion that was caked on, and got that off, and then just retextured the finish on the watch. Once that's stained, it gets into that brass and chrome plating, and there's not much you can do here. I'm just going to fast forward through cleaning the case. I was very worried about the case and excited to see that it cleaned up really well. I used a fiberglass bristle brush on this, and then I polished it by hand afterwards just to make sure that I got most of the debris off. I was able to get all the rust off. There is a little bit of corrosion on the brass, but it polished up really well. And there's some pitting where the plating has come off the brass. Nothing I can do about that since it's the way it was originally done. If I try to redo it, I'm just going to make it worse. But I was lucky to get that case perfectly clean. Now it's time, all the parts have been cleaned, we're going to start reassembling this watch. Now most of you can tell this is a Swiss watch, it's not an American watch. It's mostly a large wristwatch movement that that's running this pocket watch. I don't have the specs on this particular watch. I didn't go look at them. It is a 17 jewel watch. We're going to go ahead and put the train back together. Get this ready for reassembly. So I think since Hurricane Ian, I've probably done maybe 3 dozen watches that have had water damage. One was pretty interesting. It was a really old Rolex watch that somebody had it in their safe and was pretty sure that their safe was waterproof, and however they thought that, it turned out to be not true. The watch was pretty well destroyed. Ended up rebuilding the whole watch. Kind of sad to see that happen, but that watch needed quite a bit of parts, and you can see if you have a watch that's stuck in a safe, don't assume that your safe is waterproof, because it doesn't always happen that way. Getting this barrel bridge back on was pretty easy. I did find a new screw for this case, or for this bridge, so we're going to put these 3 screws back in this particular watch, get them all set. Remember, when you're putting a watch together, if you're following this along for a tutorial, you're going to put these screws in probably 75%. You want to leave them a little loose because you don't want to push down on the gears. You want to make sure your gears turn freely, that all the pinions are in the jewels correctly before you tighten the screws down. And that way you can make sure that you're not going to break anything when you're reassembling. It is easy to do, and we've all done it. I did it when I started out years and years and years ago. I'm going to apologize now. I did have the camera zoomed in a little bit too much, so you're not going to see everything I'm doing here, but I'm putting on the train bridge here and just kind of getting it seated in correct position, and I'm going to try to work on the screws here just to get them a little tight so that I can just flip these gears into the pinions, or get the pinions back in the jewels, make sure they're all tightened down. Once everything is seated correctly, get the screws put in place and tighten everything down, I can go ahead and do a test. This is the last screw for the barrel bridge. I'm going to tighten that up. And again, I'm using a new camera here, so just bear with me. I think I'm working out most of the bugs with this camera. Now we'll get the winding gear put back in. There is a small spacer that goes on this particular watch. Very common with Swiss watches, you'll see a spacer on the winding ratchet, and that way you can, if you put it on and it's a little loose, just look for a spacer. It might have just popped off if you weren't paying attention to where it was. Since I'm oiling everything, I'm just going to go ahead and oil all the jewels and get that spacer put on, put this ratchet gear on for the winding clutch, and then remember, this is a reverse thread screw, so you're going to put this screw on. It is very, very thin and delicate, so this screw gets tightened up very gently. Little piece of fuzz I got to get out of there. I don't know where that came from. Probably my puppy. And it's time to sharpen my screwdriver. I'm going to tighten this screw up just a little bit. Now we'll get the barrel ratchet on, and this is a normally threaded screw, so we're just going to tighten this up. You can see as I turn that barrel, we've got nice movement throughout the entire train. So all the gears are turning. They don't have any noise that would seem like it's friction. Everything is pretty smooth on this watch. I'm not sure when this watch was made. I'm guessing probably 60s or 70s. Again, we'll just give it one more quick test, make sure everything looks good. There is a little discoloration on that barrel bridge from the chrome coming off where the rust was corroded onto the watch movement. I'm going to go ahead and put a little drop of oil on the balance jewel and the pallet jewel. Now I'm going to do a test. I always like to put the balance completely back in the watch without the pallet fork. Just push it down and just give it a quick shot with the air blower just to make sure that that balance is free and works good. With the balance completely cleaned and the watch serviced and oiled, you can see that balance wheel turns perfectly. So I'm not getting any friction. I've checked this. This is an unadjusted watch, 17 joules. I did test it in 3 positions just to make sure. Now it's time to set the pallet fork in place, so we're going to gently place that back into the lower pallet jewel. And then we'll put the pallet bridge on. This bridge is a little bit difficult going on, so I'm going to use the screw just to push it down a little bit and then just to adjust the pallet fork as I need to as I slowly turn that screw to make sure that it's seated correctly in the jewel. And once I'm happy, I'll just tighten that up. We'll give it a little oil on the top of the bridge and test that it works good. I'm going to give this a little bit of a wind retest and put the balance back in. So here you can see I'm putting the balance wheel back in with the bridge, and we've got that seated correctly, and you can see it's running really good. I'm going to tighten this up very, very gently and slowly, just make sure that everything's moving perfectly. So now I know the watch sets and winds good, so we're in good shape here. It's time to work on the upper part of the watch and get the dial and the gears on that side of the watch all put back together. So here we're going to put the cannon pinion back in. Again, I apologize, I'm a little off center. Push that cannon pinion down. Seat it correctly within the teeth. Now we'll put the hour wheel on. And there's no dial washer needed for this particular watch. We can seat the dial now that the dial's cleaned, and then I'll just tighten up the dial feet screws and keep that seated correctly and tightly onto the watch. I'll put it back in the case, and we'll set the 1K screw that I have. I was unable to extract the rusted screw from the other side. I didn't really want to drill into it because I couldn't find another screw that would fit perfectly. Luckily, the stem will keep the watch seated on the opposite side, so this lower case screw is going to hold it nice and tightly within the case. With that done, I'm just going to brush off the surface of the dial. Again, the dial did not get damaged from water, thank God, so it's in good shape. And we'll just go ahead and put the hour hand on. Remember, I use hand tools to push these on. Just a nylon bushing that you push gently on the hands. You can put these on too tight, so you want to be careful when you do that. Once the hour hand is seated correctly, I'll put the minute hand on. In this case, I'm just going to use the flat end of my tweezers just to push that tight onto the cannon pinion. Once it's level and adjusted, I'll just make sure that it turns without hitting the hour hand. Now you can see here I've already put the front bezel back on. I cleaned and polished that bezel up a little bit from the damage that was caused by the corrosion from the seawater. And again, the customer did get lucky because it wasn't severely damaged at all. I'll get the back cover on this watch. This is a beautiful porcelain cover on the back of this. This is the side that has a little bit of gold flake coming off of the bezel around that porcelain disc. And unfortunately, seawater, the salt will cause some damage to gold-plated products. I was able to get all the corrosion off the case. You can see it's nice and cleaned and polished. looks really good. The watch is running about 3 seconds fast. I'm going to leave it at that particular point. There's no reason to try to get it any better. And it is running very well. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you know anybody who's interested, please share this. And if you like it, hit that thumbs up button. Let me know how much you like it. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. I always appreciate it. I do read all the comments. I respond to what I can. I apologize for not responding to all of them. So, and I do appreciate all you guys watching. Hey, listen, I'm almost up to 16,000 subscribers. You guys have made a great 12 months. I've grown so much. I appreciate all of you subscribing and watching. Take care. Enjoy.